Welcome to Inspiring Teachers, a show bringing you classroom tips, motivation, and stories from successful educators. Join Tavis Beam and Danny Hogger as they explore the why of teaching.
And welcome to Inspiring Teachers, episode 99. Ooh, remotely collaborating. Danny Hogger here with Tavis Beam. Tavis, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Good to see you, Danny.
Hey, man, I'm glad that the woodworking is still happening at home. Tavis built me some gardening boxes out of redwood. So if you need some handyman work, contact him, man. He's good at what he does.
Give me a ring.
On Zoom, that is, because we're probably not doing house calls. Okay, well, that was a fun way to start. Debbie Mendoza is joining us. She's a primary teacher who loves working with kindergarten students and supporting teachers in the classroom. She's taken her knowledge and experience and shared it with AmpedUpLearning.com. They are sponsoring this episode, a wonderful place to gain resources and get out of the sit and get rid of teaching, but amplify what you can do and really put up some excellent stuff there. And if you're a teacher, you can also post content there and get a larger share than other websites. So, Debbie, thank you so much. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good, and I'm glad to be here. And my store name is Froggy About Teaching, but it mainly has resources for kindergarten through second grade because that is my specialty. It's the early grades there.
Awesome. Beloved ages. And before we get too froggy, let's jump, pun, over to Matthew E. Forman, whose resume is so long, I reached YouTube's max upload length just talking about it, but he joins us from Texas. Matthew, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, thanks.
Oh, man, great stuff, great stuff. So, Debbie, talk to me about how you got started in education, because Tavis and I, he teaches middle, I teach high school. It's a special calling. I think people that teach young students can't imagine being a high school teacher and vice versa. Why'd you get started in teaching? What was it that kicked you off in that direction?
You know, I have to admit the truth. I had a fourth grade teacher that was not a good teacher, and I would sit in the back of the room looking at her thinking, I could do this better. And honestly, that's where it started.
Yeah. That's funny. That's not the first time we've heard it, but it doesn't happen very often. Mm-hmm. And it's always funny when it does. What was it that you saw that needed tweaking or improving?
Where she was building up students, you know, giving them the steps that they needed to follow instead of just assuming that they should know that. So
you were already making pedagogical choices at the fourth grade.
Yeah.
And developing
writing your own curriculum.
And developing tastes of what you know you like and what you don't. I know that, Tavis, it's a big part of how you teach is putting yourself in the place of the students in your woodshop class. What is it that you focus on, Tavis, that you think that Debbie also saw? What do you think?
Well, for me, school was not an easy thing. I had a hard time in school, and I often find that most teachers thrived in the education environment as a student. And for me, I didn't. And so I'm always thinking about students from that perspective. Even before I taught woodshop, teaching fourth grade, fifth grade, science and math, middle school, all these different levels, I really thought about it from the perspective of a student who was struggling, because I was there as well, and really feeling it and seeing that struggle in them gave me a perspective that I think has been very valuable in the relationship aspect and trying to bridge the education gap for those students.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Debbie, when you hear that, and when I ask you this question, I wonder what you think. That was your impetus for thinking about teaching, but you've been doing it for years and making really cool resources now. What is your why of teaching now? What is the reason that you do this day in, day out?
Well, you know, now I get to focus on intervention groups, ESL groups, and that really helps me to zone in on the kids that are struggling to learn. And so I just take the lesson and I break it down in chunks to where they can begin to learn it a step at a time. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I have taken and created my teaching resources.
Can you share with us one of your resources that you're really proud of, that you think is really good at connecting to students like that? Oh my goodness,
look at that.
All right, throw it away. We're done. We got physical goods in the room. I thought it was all digital this episode.
I've started making boom cards. You know, there's a change in education because of the pandemic. We're needing to be more connected online. using those types of resources for our students, especially with the at-home learning, the distance learning. So this particular product is Money Math Can Be Fun. I have created 3 boom cards focusing on money and coins and making it fun, but I am a teacher, so I have to admit there are teaching frames in that game.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super cool. And I know boom cards are very popular now, so definitely check out that store on Amped Up Learning, and they're really helping a lot of students connect with material and gain knowledge. Matthew, we're going to jump over to you. What do you have? I saw you scamper out of the room like a frog that jumped out of an Amped Up Learning store. What do you have to share with us?
Gonna let Debbie show me up. This is
Can't do it.
my newest novel study guide for S.E. Hinton's Rumblefish.
Awesome.
If you
Tell us
read The
what's in it.
Outsiders, it's a little bit older level than The Outsiders, but it's really great for when you're teaching things along the lines of the Anywhere USA or Anywhere in the World narrative, because she instead of telling us where it's taking place, she leaves it completely blank. Never gives us a physical location. But yeah, I love creating the novel study guides. ELA in middle school, I mean, that says it all right there in the store name. But this one's our shortest one at 59 pages. So,
Wow.
Yeah, it took about a week to make. That's how I spend spring break.
That's great. What is it that is in there that you find is really effective for getting students to hook on to the key concepts of that story?
Well, first of all, with Rumblefish, it's in a way a very easy read, but in a way it gets really twisted because you've got a kid who is learning disabled at a time when they did not label people as being learning disabled. He's being passed along through the system. He's a tough kid on the streets, 14 years old, and having to deal with issues that our kids deal with every day. And also with the school bit. And he's in school at a time, Deb, I know, can relate to this. Back when we were a lot younger, you could be thrown out of school permanently at the age of 14. And I almost was. So I remember my high school principal, when I was a junior in high school at the age of 15, asking my mother to have me drop out.
Wow.
Not because I was learning disabled, just the opposite. I knew more than the teachers did.
Mm-hmm.
I skipped 110 days that day because I was bored, or that year, I should say. Out of about 180 days of school, I skipped 110 and I was in ISS 35. You figure it out. I had 35 days of instruction for a school year.
Wow.
And the same thing can happen with our kids from the other perspective. And that's part of what makes Rumblefish so attractive is Hinton, instead of using Ponyboy, who was more of a gifted student, being the narrator, she's got a narrator who is learning disabled, who says, I can't remember well. So you're immediately put into the whole aspect of, can we trust this narrator or not? And the honesty that the narrator brings to the story, because he doesn't pull punches about his own shortcomings.
Right.
Wow.
And I could imagine that narrative would really help bring in a lot more of the struggling students as well, as long as you can bridge that to them.
Right.
Sounds like your resource addresses that.
Right. And with this one in particular, I mean, I always have pre-reading research to be done. And this takes place late 60s, early 70s, Vietnam. So let's talk about Vietnam and what can be some of the consequences of this kid having to be thrown out of school at the age of 14. In 4 years, he's still subject to the draft and going to war. Some things like this. With this one, I start out with a KTW. What I know, what I think I know, and what I want to learn. Charts. We talk about the war in Vietnam. We talk about civil rights and Martin Luther King Jr. And one of the things that I have in here is, and I do this with all of my novel study guides, is always judge a book by the cover. We're always told you can't judge a book by the cover. Well, they started saying that when all covers looked alike. Now, with paperbacks and everything like that, every cover looks different. In fact, there are 4 different covers for Rumblefish. And depending on which cover you pick, which copy you pick up, your idea of what this book's going to be about can be completely different. One of them's the kid on a motorcycle in leathers, and another one is a beta Siamese fighting fish. What's the book about? Judging by that cover.
Great. Yeah,
That's a great exercise in just recognizing how our stories change when we look at a cover like that, and that could be extrapolated into prejudice and all types of different lessons.
Yeah,
Exactly.
really awesome. And so from a wonderful resource like that Rumblefish guide created on spring break, we go from that to Homeschool Holiday. That's Christy Gandara's store at AmpedUpLearning. And from the classroom to the homeroom, literally rooms in her home, Christy
That's
joins
it.
us. How are you today,
Yes.
Christy?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, doing so good. And
Thanks
thank you
for
for
joining
giving us a few minutes with us. Tell us
Thank
about
you for having me.
Tell us about your store and your perspective as a teacher.
So my store is unique in the fact that my products are designed to coincide with kind of quirky or fun holidays throughout the year. So every day there's something to celebrate. So we all celebrate the big holidays, you know, like Valentine's Day. Everyone has a celebration for that. But not everyone celebrates, say, Tourist Appreciation Day or Oreo Cookie Day. So I design products that go along with some of those fun holidays.
Oh, that's so fun. I'd
That's
love to celebrate
really
every cookie day if I could. I'm already hooked.
Yeah.
I'm in. You got me. And what are some of the outcomes of celebrating those days? Like, what have your students or the people who get the resources, like, what do you think they gain from having these experiences?
Well, they gain perspective that there's more out there. One of my big philosophies is that everything is learning. Everything that we do is learning. So you can tie standards to everything. So I like to tell teachers that they need to step away from the textbook every now and then. As a mentor teacher in my school, I know that when the kids are tired, when the teachers are tired, I would like to tell them to put your teacher's manual down, take a break, and do something fun with the kids, because everything is learning. I know some schools use a standards-based report card, things like that. So you can tie standards to just about everything. You know, Oreo Cookie Day is a perfect example of that, in the sense that if we're stacking Oreo cookies to see how high we can get them, we can do math with that. We can do science with that. You can build with Oreo cookies. You know, they're blocks in a way. We're certainly not going to eat Oreo cookies until we get ourselves sick. But in a homeschool aspect, you can also cook with them. So you can do recipes related to Oreo cookies. So there's a lot of different things a lot of outcomes related to the holidays, and just kind of stepping away, taking a break. Everyone is refreshed, relaxed, and then they're ready to get back at it.
I remember a student did a research project and proved that double stuffed Oreos were not actually double stuffed.
See, there you go. Exactly. Yeah.
You know, Christy, it's over 100 degrees here in Texas, and the best Oreo recipe is the DQ Blizzard.
Yes. Yes, it's really hot here in California as well. We went to McDonald's yesterday and got the McFlurry. They all say Oreo is the best here in my family.
All right. Well, it's hard to transition out of snacks because now I'm just hungry.
Yes.
We've got just a couple minutes left, and I wonder if we could just go one by one and just give your store name, and if you could just give one piece of advice to all the teachers who will watch this, and especially the new teachers that we talk to at conferences. Christy, I'll start with you. So if you can give the name of your store and a piece of advice for reaching students, what would it be?
My store name is Homeschool Holiday, and the advice that I have for teachers is to celebrate. Keep it fun.
Awesome. That's great. It is an excellent message. And Debbie, I'll have you go next. We'll go alphabetically by first name because order. Debbie, how about you?
The name of my store is Froggy About Teaching, and I say never give up on a student, and their progress might not be huge, but if they take it a step at a time, they will continue to make that progress.
That's a beautiful message. Matthew?
ELA in middle school is the store name, and if I have to give one word of advice...
And by law, you must.
Pardon?
and by law, you must.
Okay, by law, I must. Always keep in mind you're dealing with children. They're not young adults, and at least in the middle school age. And the second thing is you're never alone. He walks with you.
Very nice. Thank you. And Tavis, give us a piece of advice and also plug your new channel about making fun, because I think this group would really like it as well.
Yeah, as the only person here who doesn't have an AmpedUpLearning account, now I'm inspired to go and make one. And if I did, it would be called Making Fun, because I like to bring as much joy to my students as possible. So when I taught elementary school, I was always willing, after a good hour of doing math, to go outside and teach them to juggle for 15 minutes. And that just brought so much joy and life to them. So for me, my big message and takeaway would be, just like you said, that these are not adults yet. These are kids. And we want to give them as much joy in the learning process as possible so that they see the joy in it, and that we can just bring it out in them as much as possible into adulthood so that they never lose that joy.
Nice. Yeah, we need more joy in our world right now, that's for sure. So I'm Danny Hogger, and the store is Hogger History. We hope to have all of our guests on in a future episode to talk more in depth and talk about the things that they're working on. And for me, my new album, Spring to Life, is now on digital music stores everywhere. And I've got tons of high school resources in the Hogger History podcast as well. Plus, a Broadcaster Secrets to Teaching is only $2.99 on AmpedUpLearning now. So you can't lose. Go have some cookies. Have a great day. Find some joy with your family and friends. Be safe. See you on the next edition of Inspiring Teachers. Bye, everybody. See you later.
Thank you, Danny. Bye.